struggle, it may take you a very long period of time to gain the results you want, even on a healthy diet.
Absolutely, because the first thing you have to do sometimes is restore the general health of your metabolism.
Right.
And I know we're going to talk a lot about some particular hormones that
Let's
are involved.
do it now.
Well, what I always look at, and this is really an individual type thing, but everybody needs to pay attention to two main hormones that kind of govern the metabolism. Now, there are lots and lots of hormones that are involved with metabolism. Some people think thyroid is the most important, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. That's one of the regulators of the rate of the metabolism. But the two that you really need to pay attention to are cortisol and insulin, because what they do, they work in opposition to each other. Insulin is a hormone, a metabolic hormone that is called anabolic. Means it helps build up your body. You can't build your body. You can't build your muscles. You can't even build your metabolism or the glands involved with your metabolism without insulin. On the other side, you have cortisol. Cortisol is the chemical that breaks your body down. It's as far as the metabolism goes. So you can't break down muscle tissue. You can't break down fat tissue really without cortisol, or it aids it tremendously. So you've got these two hormones that tend to balance each other, and certain types of diets will impact one much more than the other. And I'm here to say right now that if you just focus on one of these particular hormones and not both, you're going to run into long-term problems.
Well, we could talk about the hypothalamus. We can go all over the place, but I think people tend to think that there's a certain hormone that's a bad guy. Remember when I don't even remember the supplement, but people were talking about cortisol being the bad guy, and that's what's putting fat on us, well, not recognizing that that's a symptom of something else. So let's share with people that cortisol really isn't the bad guy.
No, not at all. Cortisol, when it's in excessive amounts, it will make you gain weight, no doubt about it. And that's why some of those supplement companies have taken advantage of that little fact, and they've used it, kind of twisted it in their marketing to say, well, these supplements lower your cortisol, so therefore they're going to make you lose weight. Well, I actually test cortisol levels in my patients, and I can say that most of the people that have trouble losing weight do not have excessive cortisol.
Well, let's get back to, before you go on
many
with
of them
that.
have low cortisol levels.
Well, I hear what you're
high.
saying, but let's talk about the high cortisol. Let's stick with that, and then we'll come back to it in a moment. Why do people have high cortisol?
Well, it's your
levels?
stress chemical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why are people stressing?
Well, lots of reasons.
But we've gone over it many times on the show. Let's do it again. Why?
It could be traffic. Maybe traffic gets. Maybe they have bad relationship at work. Maybe they have a bad relationship at home. Stress on the job, deadlines, the boss breathing down their neck, and also maybe they're not doing the things to shut their stress response off, so they don't respond appropriately to stress. You know that two people. You see one person, they're involved in a lifestyle, in a situation, and to you might think, well, that's no big deal, but to them they freak out, right?
Let's also talk about one that stresses the body out that I think 99% of the people just absolutely either they miss it or they're not aware of it. Bad food.
Sure, bad foods, alcohol, drugs, all these things are stress to the body. Excessive caffeine is a stress to the body. All these things boost your stress response.
Okay, so now we're going to say cortisol's not the bad guy. Cortisol being released, too much cortisol being released, is a symptom of something greater. That greater is the stress. How do we lower the stress? Well, we've talked about it on other shows. You can go to YouTube, put in 21 Day Body Makeover on YouTube, or go to my website, 21daybodymakeover.com. Listen to the podcasts of shows where we talk about stress or lowering stress levels. And once you do that, now cortisol is not going to be the bad guy. You just talked about, George, people coming in my office that have cortisol levels that are too low.
Right.
Well, why is that a problem?
Well, cortisol, as I said before, cortisol helps you break down your chemicals.
Right.
Remember, I said insulin builds things up. Cortisol helps break it down, along with adrenaline, for one, but there's some others. But it helps you break things down. If you can't break down your chemicals in your body, you can't break those things down and use them for energy. That's what cortisol is basically there for, is to break down some of your body's fat stores or muscle stores, and then you can use it for energy. So in effect, it's helping you burn calories and convert to energy. When cortisol crashes and you don't make appropriate levels of cortisol, you no longer can break your body down.
I think that's the way I would have asked the question had I done it again or done it at the beginning. Not about it being too low, but what causes your cortisol levels to be too low? That's a more appropriate way to ask it.
Sure. Well, what causes it is too much stress over a long period of time. The gland that produces cortisol is the adrenal gland, and if you want to produce a lot of cortisol because you're under stress temporarily, that's normal and appropriate, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're constantly under stress and you don't handle stress appropriately, could be because you don't exercise appropriately, could be because you eat inappropriately, could be because every time you feel stressed, you sit on the couch watching TV and eating chocolate ice cream. That doesn't help you reduce your stress response. It just makes you kind of think that you feel better.
Right. Well, that's that temporary serotonin neurotransmitter, serotonin
dopamine
surge, right?
Endorphins.
You just said something about exercise. We don't have to do it again. We're going to touch on it. People are stressing their body out when they're doing these triathlons and marathons and doing long, sustained, not up and down, long, sustained aerobic activity. It's stressing the body also, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's doing exactly what we talked about. A stress is a stress, and jogging for a long period of time is a stress, and it doesn't really stimulate your body enough to turn the stress response off.
All right, so people are listening right now and saying, okay, what the hell are you talking about? You're getting me all confused. You said we're talking about certain diets today that are going to help us. They're not going to help us. They're helping some people. How does this factor into somebody who wants to start a diet?
Well, we're just trying to establish some of the groundwork. We're going to talk about several real popular diets and how they actually specifically affect cortisol levels and how they affect insulin levels and how you need to balance the two if you're going to achieve long-term results.
All right, so coming up next, we're going to talk about several different popular diets. One of them is going to be the HCG diet, the latest one. Some old ones also. Let's talk about Atkins and South Beach. We're also going to talk about low-fat diets being one of the worst things you can be on. And we'll leave the and for later, just in case we can't get it in on today's show. So coming up next, that's what we'll talk about with Dr. Jeremy Webster. 726 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. 734 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. George DeJong, Train Station Fitness Show. You could always catch me on Facebook. Look me up on Facebook, George DeJong, or maybe it's under 21 Day Body Makeover. I don't even know. I don't look myself up. And I do some fun stuff on there. Check my wall out. And Dr. Jeremy Webster is here with me today. We're talking about what it takes to be successful on a specific diet. Some diets will play with your hormones in a positive way, and they'll actually make changes in your body that are positive. Some will play with your hormones in a negative way, and will actually give you a backfire, so you'll get great results in the beginning, and all of a sudden it backfires on you, and you wind up gaining more weight than you had before you started the program. So, Dr. Webster, let's talk about Dr. Fatkins, or the Dr. Atkins diet. He was a visionary. He was ahead of his time. He was saying we should eat bacon, we should eat steak, we should eat fat, and I agree with him. But the only thing that I had a problem with was the induction phase.
What do you mean by that?
The induction phase in the very beginning, where you don't have any carbohydrates at all, and your body is like kind of craving all of that bad stuff. The fat is fantastic because that keeps you fuller longer. Protein being of the three macronutrients, protein keeps you fullest the longest. Then you got fat, and then you have carbs after that. So that's the only thing that bothers me. Yeah, you'll get great results in the beginning, but you'll also be craving and grasping for other foods, right?
Right. And what his intention was this. He was trying to play on one of the two hormones that we talked about earlier, insulin and cortisol. Well, he was focused mostly on insulin levels. See, insulin, as I said, is the chemical or the hormone that helps your body store things or build up things. Well, one of the things that's really, really good at building is fat storage. So when you eat something like a piece of bread, what happens is your blood sugar starts to go up. As soon as that happens, your body releases insulin. Insulin then takes that sugar. If there's any more than your body can burn right away, that sugar, which is energy, has to be stored somewhere, primarily in fat. I mean, yeah.
So are you saying if we had no insulin, we would never be fat?
Well, yeah, but we'd also die because insulin's not just a fat storage hormone. It's the most foundational hormone that we have. It really controls all other hormones in our body, including testosterone and all the other sex hormones. Really, everything. It's the underlying hormone that controls everything.
I just don't want people to think that insulin is a bad guy, like some people thought cortisol is a bad guy. Understand the role of the hormones, that they're there for a reason, we need them, but they don't need to be stimulated continuously to work against us in a negative fashion.
Right, and all I'm saying is he was onto something, and he was right in a way, but he was only half right because he didn't take into account the other side of the issue. So back to what I was saying, we eat the bread,